Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Transfer Show. We bring you each and every week during the transfer windows on the upper tier over there on YouTube. Head over there, light up all those buttons for us, bell notification, subscribe, like, share, the whole thing. If you want to contact the show, you'll get us on the upper tier podcast at gmail.com. We're on Twitter at the _upper_ tier, Facebook and Instagram, the upper tier, on TikTok, Darren, the upper tier podcast. And you'll also find us out there. We're on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify for audio version show. This is the Transfer Show. Darren, heating up 4 to 5 days basically to go at this stage. We are going to be, just so our viewers know, we are going to be doing a YouTube live on Monday evening where we're going to be covering the last hour or so of deadline day, as we always do. We will be suited and booted and ready to go a la Jim White. How are you?
I'm good, pal. We'll probably do the last hour of the window and the half an hour after.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll diagnose what has gone on. Safe to say, this window.
There's always one or two little sneaky ones that catch you out at the end, and you're waiting for a fax machine or something, and you just don't know.
It's gas, isn't it? We still live in a world of fax machines, don't we? It's crazy, isn't it, when you think
about it? Hard to believe it. Nobody's sending emails there at FIFA.
Safe, yeah, probably not. No one leaves a paper trail at FIFA, just saying. Safe to say, it's certainly heated up in the last couple of days, this transfer window. First of all, we'll kick off your own club, Man United. Ama Diallo, or Diallo, gone up to Rangers. The young lad's gone up there. What's your thoughts on that move? Is that a move where, are they thinking they could bring him back a better player, or is it a move where they're thinking he's not really for us and we'll put him in a shop window?
No, so apparently the word coming out of Old Trafford is that most of the guys being allowed to leave are guys that maybe the new manager might want to have a look at. So they've been let go on loan deals so that they can be brought back in and the new manager can have the final say on yay or nay. I want them. I don't want them. Let's sell them, get rid of them, and we'll use the funds and stuff like that. So, we've seen Anthony Martial, we've seen Amad Diallo. I fully expect to see Donny van de Beek and Jesse Lingard leave the building before Monday, Diallo was linked heavily with Feyenoord at the start of the season and actually was injured and couldn't fulfill the medical for the loan. And at that stage, Feyenoord were being looked after by Giovanni van Bronckhorst, who is now Rangers manager.
Yeah.
So he's gone back for the boy Diallo. I think he sees something there. I've got to say, he's got a bit about him, this kid. And as United fans, we probably haven't seen enough of him yet. But I feel like there's flashes and there's moments where I think, I could just get excited here, and I really like to see him in a setting with a better set of players. Like the last time we got to see him was obviously the Champions League game where we'd already qualified basically in the group stage, and he went out and played with, Charlie Savage and Zidane Iqbal and these guys, where I want to see him play with Bruno. I want to see him play with Cavani, Ronaldo. I want to see how he interchanges with those kind of players, because I believe, he can do a job for us at United, I have to say.
Yeah, kind of like what they did with Elanga the last couple of weeks. They put him in there now and he's been outstanding and he's looked the business, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. And he's brought massive energy into the team, something that we lacked, especially high up the pitch like that. His work rate's phenomenal. Kid's obviously got a bit of quality about him as well, And again, I think I spoke to you about seeing him G up the crowd and stuff like that. I mean, it's very, very daunting being in Old Trafford. You maybe have 79,000 people there and guys playing second, third, fourth games for a team like United. Maybe they haven't grown into the jersey just yet, but it doesn't look like it's weighing on Anthony Elanga, I have to say.
No, not at all. Martial off to Sevilla. Expect him to do well in La Liga, would you?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'm a big fan of Julian Lopetegui. Has done an unbelievable job pretty much anywhere he's been, other than Real Madrid, where he was shown the door very quickly. But I fully expect him that Martial to do a job for Sevilla. I believe he was asked to bring. He asked, could he bring Martial in on the basis that he thinks he could be enough to get them to that La Liga title, because at the minute they're only 4 points behind Real, and he thought if he could get Martial's creativity and goals involved, he thinks he could cut that gap on Real and maybe even nick this La Liga title.
Well, I think certainly when he came on the other day there, or last week, whenever it was for United, he certainly changed the dynamic of the match without a shadow of a doubt. So, and I think
it's never something we've ever questioned was ability with Anthony Martial. It's always been attitude for me, you know. I was a huge Martial fan, I have to say. I was actually at his debut against Liverpool. The day he went on that mazy and left Martin Skirtle on his arse and stuck it in the far corner, and you thought, oh my God, have we just signed, you know? And it just hasn't materialised. He's failed to nail down a spot in the team. I don't think he wants to play it wide. He wants to try and play through the middle, but his stats through the middle and his work rate weren't good enough. You know, and he's kind of just fallen through the cracks at United a little bit, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think the problem with Martial as well is I think there's probably a reason for the attitude as well, because he's kind of being mismanaged a bit, and he's gone through a lot of upheaval there as well in terms of managers and stuff like that. And I think he's trying to figure out himself what he wants as well, and it's difficult for him as well. And I suppose if you're occasionally called upon and you don't deliver, then you're vilified, aren't you? And it's just it's kind of one of those things where, you know, you need a decent run of games to really see a guy. You know, you're talking about giving him a decent run of the team, 5, 6, 7, 8 games maybe, you know, before you can make that problem.
The problem is Ranić didn't have 5 or 6 or 7 games to give him. Yeah. So he was always going to fall by the wayside. I mean, you know, United are in a position now where every point is of a premium in that league, and we can't afford to make too many experiments in that starting 11, you know.
But it would have been fair to assume in the last, say, 4 or 5 weeks, when you're seeing the form of United drop off so badly. I know they've bounced back into the top 4 in the last week or so with some results and stuff like that. But it's fair to say in the 4 weeks prior to that, it wouldn't have been that much of an experiment, because things up front were so blunt and on their balls that, like, to put him in there. And when you see when he did introduce him last week, he definitely lifted the energy of the team. There's no doubt about it. Now, I don't know whether that's a case where he was putting himself in the shop window for a loan or a move or whatever it was. That could be part of it. But as you said, body language more often than not wasn't great. But I mean, body language for a lot of players at United for a lot of years at this stage hasn't been great. You know, I mean, it's been a tough road for these guys, especially someone like Anthony Martial, who's been there a while now. He's a veteran of Man United at this stage, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. Yeah.
We'll definitely keep an eye on him at Sevilla anyway. There's no doubt about it. And we wish him well. I think he'll do well. The question is, would he do well enough to go back into the United fold and be a regular? Or would he do well enough? Is he one of those guys that probably won't return and will move on in a permanent deal, maybe, you know?
Yeah, I think this is really a huge moment for Martial. If he could go out and you know, dispel a couple of the rumours or the myths about that attitude and get a couple of goals and some good performances and work rate and stuff like that, you know, a move to La Liga beckons, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You may get Barcelona, you may get a Real, you may get Atletico to have a look and go, you know what? We feel like we could have it. We could try this guy out, and we feel like, you know, seeing as he's done a job in this league for the last 6 months, maybe it's a much easier sell to the board or to, you know, to whoever's funding the deal than it is if he's coming from England and he hasn't really lit the world on fire for the last little while, you know.
And especially if he was to land that title for Sevilla.
Listen,
100%.
Maybe then Sevilla decide, you know what, let's throw 40 million at this year.
Yeah. Which for La Liga champions is not huge money, really. You know what I mean? For what they get.
Not for La Liga champions, but for Sevilla, it would be big bucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Let's have a chat about a couple of London clubs. We have to talk about Spurs and we have to talk about Arsenal. Arsenal look like they're kind of trying to empty out the bag really, to refill it potentially with an upgrade in talent.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting dynamic at the moment, because there's a lot of people going one way, those arrows behind you on that beautiful transfer show, but there's not a lot coming the other way at the moment, and we're 4 days out.
And to be honest, it's a very dangerous game.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking, is this manager, is he more preoccupied about his own potential new deal on the table, or is he really preoccupied with looking at his squad and thinking, I know they're going away on warm weather training to Dubai. Aubameyang was excluded from the trip,
Yeah, rightly so.
Well, it depends on what seat you sit in. If you're sitting in a seat where you're crying out for a striker who could potentially get you a few goals, I know his form wasn't great up to when he was playing and stuff like that.
And he's a disruptive influence.
But is it a case where he wouldn't be a disruptive influence if you had a stronger manager in there being able to manage personalities and stuff like that? No, like, would Aubameyang do what he's doing, or would he have done what he done if it was Klopp, if it was Tuchel, if it was Pep? I don't think so. I think he was kind of ripping the piss out of Pep a little bit, to be honest. Or not out of Arteta, I mean.
Yeah, possibly. But I mean, I don't think Arteta at Arsenal is going to change anytime soon. I mean, it's a case where Aubameyang either gets on with it or doesn't. And I think he's dirtied that bib far too much at Arsenal for anything to stick anymore, I can't even believe he's back at Arsenal, if I'm honest. I can't believe they haven't managed to send him from the AFCON directly to Saudi Arabia or wherever he's going to play his football. Can he get a spot in the IPL and the Indian Premier League or anything? Because that's about as far away as he should be if I'm an Arsenal fan. I want no hand actor part in Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He's the reason that, he's the reason that now this rebuild has had to happen, because of the likes of an Aubameyang who come in and sap the club of finances for very, very little in recent
times, certainly anyway. I mean, he did come in at one stage and set the league alight. There's no doubt about it. But I just think it's a very dangerous game, as you said, for Arsenal, isn't it? Because there's a lot of players going out. Now, unless there's a lot of players there on the verge of coming in, we got 4 days, and we know with Arsenal in terms of signing players, it takes forever and a day for them to get a player over the line.
Yeah, and we obviously spoke earlier on in the window about the boy Arthur at Juventus, really good player, Brazilian international, obviously moved from Barcelona a couple of years ago in the deal with Miralem Pjanic. I think this is an exercise. Arsenal have to get a certain amount of credit off the books before they can add to it. I think that Arthur deal will go through, if I'm honest. I believe he's had a medical. I believe, everything is in place, provided the funds can be made available. Now, you see tonight, obviously, Arsenal have gotten rid of Callum Chambers. He's gone to Aston Villa on a 3.5-year deal.
That came out of nowhere.
I haven't even heard a transfer fee, to be honest with you.
This was the Randy Orton transfer, wasn't it? Out of nowhere.
Absolutely, but this is gonna lead to further space in our Arsenal, salary cap, so to speak. And with a view to getting the likes of Arthur in, I fully expect Arsenal to get 2 in before Monday. And I know when we spoke about it, you thought I was being extremely optimistic. Like, I'm not an Arsenal fan, so I couldn't give a monkeys if they do or not. If I'm honest, I prefer if they didn't get 2 in.
Yeah, but what we're saying is we've seen them have a little bit of run of form. We know they had a very tough January. A lot of things have caused that. I mean, some of it was AFCON, some of it was the virus related, some of it was injuries. We know they've kind of a very weak squad in terms of backup and stuff like that and all. But I just think it's a very dangerous game. These are still, remember, this is an Arsenal that are still in the hunt for a top 4. And I know you've had thoughts on that when we spoke about it, that you see nothing but United there, really, because you think the others will fall away. And I think based on when you look at the talent that's available at the moment, I kind of agree with you. But I think if Arsenal want to have any chance of being in a top 4 race or even a top 6 race, they have to get a midfielder. They have to get a forward guy who can put the ball in the back of the net. And they're also going to have to get a little bit of backup for the back line as well, because there's no cover there at all. There's talk as well, the boy Nketiah is about to sign a pre-contract agreement as well. I was reading today as well. And he could be out the door.
And don't forget they've already loaned the boy Pablo Mari out.
Yeah.
So you've Mari and Chambers, 2 defenders gone out the door. They have got, a large enough backline at Arsenal. I mean, you've got Cedric and you've got Tommy Yasu from the fullbacks on the right. You've got Tavares and you've got Tierney on the opposite side. And then you've got Gabriel, you've got Holding, you've got
Ben White.
And I think there's another one. But so they do have, the reasonable numbers there, I would have said.
Yeah, but it's only really 4 out of 7 that he fancies, isn't it? When if you really look at it on the face of it, he clearly doesn't fancy the boy Cedric at all. You know what I mean? And
no,
I don't think
there's actually talks of him leaving as well. But I think they absolutely need. I think first of all, if I was Arsenal and I come out of this window without a striker, it's been a massive failure. After that, I'd be looking at midfield, and after that, I'd be looking at that back four and that centre half position in particular. So it's down the spine of that team at Arsenal, isn't it? Where you kind of need to fill in the gaps, don't you?
Yeah, I mean they've done a good job so far in terms of Ben White coming in and stuff like that, and obviously Ramsdale has been an electric signing for them, in fairness, because to be honest with you, if Ramsdale wasn't there and they hadn't got him in, you're talking bottom half or lower, to be honest with you. He has saved them so many times, and he's also a driving force there in terms of pumping them up and stuff like that as well. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting 4 days for Arsenal. I think this will define not only their season, but could define Arteta as well, in terms of, I know he's carrying a lot of credit at the moment in terms of the decisions that he's made, in terms of moving some of these guys out and stuff like that. But if he falls short of a top 6, because I mean that Europa Conference will be a disaster for them. Disaster.
It's
minimum
a disaster.
Top 6.
It's a disaster for anyone that ends up in it, really. Unless you're maybe a Wolves or a West Ham like this year.
Yeah.
Other than that, none of the traditional top 6 want anything to do with it. Yeah. It's hell on earth on a Thursday night, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
But I've got to say, I do like what Arteta is doing at Arsenal, and with how he's building the squad. I think he needs at least 2 windows. And probably this time next year, we'll probably still be saying he's 1 or 2 short, but they're moving in a good direction. I feel like he knows what he wants. And he knows where he wants to make changes and stuff. But I feel like Arsenal maybe weren't the draw they used to be. And if we look at the likes of the boy Vlahovic, who they were big in the game for, the talk is, he never once considered him. Which for a boy who they've chased for the last 6 months, maybe, for him to not consider them a viable option at all should tell you how far down the pecking order Arsenal have fallen.
Yeah, and I think at the time when they were chasing them and they were negotiating and they were talking and they were throwing money on the table and stuff, there wasn't many other teams in for him. There was a few people sniffing around and looking from the outside, but there was no one in that poker game at that stage.
No.
So and for him to kind of, put it out there kind of that way is an indication as well. I think you're right.
Yeah.
But they should have had a backup plan to the front man, shouldn't they? They shouldn't have been going all in with the 4 aces on him, because they know that these guys, because eventually a Juve or a Milan or someone is going to come knocking.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's bewildering for me sometimes with Arsenal, you know what I mean? Because they're a fantastic club. Like, there's no doubt about it. They're a fantastic club, and like, they're in a great location. I mean, who doesn't want to be a professional footballer earning hundreds of thousands of pounds and living in London? Who doesn't want to be that guy?
You know? Absolutely.
So if that's not enough of a draw value, then I suppose from the Arsenal fan base, it's good from their point of view, because they turn around and go, well, if he didn't want to fucking be here, thank God we didn't sign him.
100%. You don't want another Aubameyang.
You could get another Lukaku or something like that situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move our thinking now to Spurs. Spurs, they've partly they were in heavy for Luis Diaz. He's turned around and said, not happening. Apparently, the talk coming out today was that ourselves and yourselves have entered that conversation. And the talk is Spurs are now third in that relay race. And I'm not surprised, But I think some of it might be that they're trying to pump the price and get it across the deal across the table.
Yeah.
I know that we were heavily linked with him before even the conversations with Spurs were happening, so there may be something there. But I think if it was Liverpool, Liverpool ain't going to move on anything like that until the summer. That's my thinking.
No. Absolutely not. And I think I remember back obviously the group stage of the Champions League when you spoke about him in depth and about how this was a guy to watch and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So he's lit up the Portuguese league this season. He really has goals and assists and stuff like that. Spurs are starting to get desperate. Spurs are really starting to get desperate because Spurs, like Arsenal, aren't as attractive a package as they were. Because, you know, you look at the boy Adama, who for all the money in the world looked like this was a done deal.
Literally climbed off the medical bed at Spurs to head to Barcelona.
Yes.
That's how close we were talking.
Yeah, and he swam. So, you know, that's, again, big indication. If I'm a player, do I look at playing under Antonio Conte as an opportunity or
career death?
Or as career death? It can kind of go either way because, I mean, if you look at somebody like Victor Moses was a massive part of that Chelsea team under Antonio Conte. And obviously things went very, very well from him there, you know. But there's been lots of good players that Conte hasn't liked the look of, and it's gone completely the other way for them. So I can absolutely see where Adama looked at this and went, I don't fancy playing as a right wing back.
This was Adama's Danny Rose moment, wasn't
it? Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you think Spurs are going to get anyone in?
I'd be shocked if they don't get at least one, I have to say, because he looks rightly pissed off at the minute. But if they don't manage to get someone in, how will he feel? And how deflated will that squad be?
I was listening to Spurs fans today, a couple of them on a couple of podcasts that I do listen to. And the fear at the moment is he could walk in February.
We know that's not beyond him.
No, 100%. That man could walk at 11 o'clock on Monday night. You know, but that's a real dilemma for Spurs then, isn't it? I mean, look at how long it took them to land a manager, and then look how long it took them to replace that manager. You know, and they've brought in Antonio Conte, who we know if he doesn't get what he wants, it's fuck you, I'm out of here. Ring the Uber, get the taxi, book it.
Absolutely.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
And if he goes, where does that leave Spurs then? Kane will want out again. That'll all come up that wave again. Kane, I'm out of here. I want to win silverware.
I still don't believe Kane wants to be there. You know, he doesn't look like a guy who wants to be there. I think, you know, I'm going to make another bold prediction. I firmly believe, you know, Kane's going to look for an out ball this summer. Will it be City? I think it'll possibly be City. Obviously, with Vlahovic going to Juventus and maybe with Haaland heading to Madrid. By the looks of it, that's where the smart money is going at the minute. City have obviously, they're getting involved in that Julian Alvarez conversation, but City are going to be big in the game for a striker in the summer. This will trump any other position on the pitch for City. If I'm a City fan or if I'm a City official, we need a striker. Yes, we played very well. Yes, we're playing great football. At times, they look like they need a focal point up there. And I don't see the Harry Kane thing going away, if I'm honest. But, and this is my Mystic Mac moment, I will not be shocked to see United get involved in this in the summer.
Harry Kane?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I have a funny feeling he's going to have to end up going somewhere at half the price originally.
No, I think
he's had a shocking season by his standard.
He has, absolutely, but I think the potential is still there, and I think obviously, you know, clubs are going to be aware of what they're getting and the, you know, a happy player and stuff like that, and what he is capable of. I mean, because we can't forget, like, at times in that league, he's just looked unplayable. He's been outrageous. You know, he really, really has. I know United are gonna look for a focal point up front for next season. I really, really wouldn't be shocked to see United get involved in the Kane situation, I have to say.
Yeah, I suppose it depends what way the valuation goes, because I think if the valuation is upwards of 90 million or whatever it is, where the stupid figures were previously in the summers of that, I don't think United are spending that type of cheddar on a guy like him.
I think United will get involved at 90 for him. Absolutely. And 100.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Now, I think maybe what they'll try and do is they'll try to say to Spurs, who have we got here that you'd like? Be it a Jesse Lingard, be it an Anthony Martial, be it Donny van de Beek. Who have we got?
Let's load up a few into that truck.
We know Spurs have spoken heavily about Dean Henderson.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like Dean Henderson. You're not going to get Dean Henderson for a penny under 30 million because the boy Ramsdale went for 30 plus.
Yeah.
And Henderson's at United and he's proven himself in the league as well. You know, so I don't think you're getting him for that. Maybe he's part payment. Maybe it's 60, 70 million and Dean Henderson.
I think if that's the case, I think you may have him nearly all to yourself, because I have a funny feeling Pep's going to go in a different direction. I don't think Pep doesn't like getting into this transfer bullshit with people. He just tells people good luck and he steps away. I think if he's in that Julian Alvarez conversation, I think they're looking not necessarily in a different direction in terms of what they want to do, but in a different direction in terms of the personnel they want to bring in. And I think if Harry Kane's going to have a move, I think you're potentially going to be looking maybe anywhere where Poch is. That's not to say that Poch might not be at United. If Poch is at United, then there might be a conversation. But if that's a conversation where United's in the game, they need to be clever and go, listen, we're banging out here at 75 million. Take it or leave it, or you can rot at Spurs. And I think you'll get him. I think you'll get him at a knockdown value, which I'm talking is half what they thought his valuation was in the summer.
I think you'll still get to that 90, 100 million. I don't think you'll get above it, but I think you'll breach, that kind of a bracket, that kind of a level.
Yeah. Talk to me, Erling Holland. I mean, you brought him up there. I mean, there's been a lot of conversations this week about him where he's had a lot to say in terms of Dortmund and their kind of treatment of him in terms of pressing them to make a decision and him kind of pressing them to make a decision. It's a kind of a two-way street, but he's feeling that he's been kind of disrespected by the club and stuff. That now I know he's come out and he's made comments since then. I mean, this is a transfer that just needs to be done, doesn't it? Is this where Pep throws in the 100 plus?
Well, I mean, Pep doesn't need to throw in the 100 plus, does he? The boy out 68.5.
Yeah, but we know that's not going to be the case, because we know that there ain't going to be one person in the ring for this guy.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. But I mean, like the acceptance at 68.5 then gives the player the options, not Dortmund. So, I mean, if me, Man United, go into the race and I go, I'll pay the 68.5, and if down the road Man City go, I'll pay the 68.5, and if Madrid go down the road and they say, we'll pay the 68.5, Dortmund are still only getting their 68.5. It's Haaland who will then turn around and go, well, how much is my agent getting? How much is my father getting? What am I getting?
I don't know, because if you've got three clubs like that, what do? You go to Real Madrid and say, listen, you're willing to put 68.5 down, but to get it across the line, are you willing to put 75 or 80 down? Does it not escalate?
That's not how a buyout clause works. They don't need to. They don't need to. Once you reach the buyout clause, that's it. And once somebody is happy to put that money on the table, job done. The power is then.
But Dortmund still have to accept. They still have to accept, from their point of view, who they want to deal with.
No, not at all.
It's not a default unless there's only one guy in the race.
Well, not if everyone comes in with, we're paying the 68.5. If they're going to stagger the deal and if they're going to, tier it in a certain way, maybe. But the thing about a buyout clause is, when the buyout clause is met, the club is powerless. And I think that's what you found with the likes of You know, it was Chris Wood recently, wasn't it? That Newcastle knew what the buyout clause were and said that's where we are.
But that's a very different level, though, isn't
it? The level doesn't matter because the clause still works in the same way. You know,
well, unless Dortmund turn around, like they still have to iron out the contract one way or another. I'd be surprised if he leaves for the buyout clause. I think there could be even an agreement between Dortmund and Holland to say, look, we know your buyout clause is this, but realistically, we know that you're worth 130, so we want 85. Let's be honest here. You know what I mean? And he might turn around and go, well, maybe that's not the case, and say, right, fine, we ain't chatting anymore.
Not happening. It's legal. It's on the paper. 68.5. Meet it, stump it up, and then all the power is in Haaland's hands. And that's where Dortmund want to be. Dortmund want to know, you know, are you going to, because it's up to Haaland. If Haaland decided, yes, the clause has been wet, but it's been met by Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia, I ain't heading there. That's a different story. Yeah. But the power in this situation is most definitely with Haaland and not with Dortmund. That's why you see the application of the pressure coming from that side, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
And I mean, let's be honest, if it was our club and we thought our crown jewel and our prized asset was leaving the club for 68.5 million, we'd be extremely upset.
Well, they signed the contract initially.
Right. And that's what's landed them where they are today.
Yeah. Something we spoke about on last week's show as well. It looks like it's potentially going to happen. Christian Eriksen to Brentford. What's your feeling on this in terms of, like, I mean, he'd be a heck of a signing for Brentford and certainly lift them greatly. And I could see if he went in there being a real player for the likes of an Ivan Toney and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, outside of the football, it's
a great splash of quality for Brentford, isn't it?
You
know, it's a guy that's proven in the league and stuff like that. A Danish international, you know, really, really good footballer, clever guy, technically, tactically, the whole thing. He's a stew. I suppose from our point of view, you know, it might make for some slightly uncomfortable viewing at times. You know, when we've spoken about it, obviously, like I remember the day it happened and stuff like that and where I was, and I obviously popped it up on our WhatsApp group and stuff. And, you know, I was in shock. At one stage, I fully believed this lad wasn't going to make it through, you know, and it's obviously wonderful to see him maybe get another shot at this and to come back and stuff like that, which is amazing. But, you know, and I don't believe he's coming here for money. I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's coming here because he's a footballer and he wants to play football. That's how I would view it. But it's going to be uncomfortable, isn't it? If I don't see a Brentford game between now and the end of the season, I won't miss much. Put it that way.
Yeah, it'll be. We'll probably watch the first one or two anyway. When tentative voice, I'd say we'd be nervous about it, you know.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on another thing. I mean, you've seen Barcelona there completed a huge deal there with Spotify, 285 million, massive deal for them there. So obviously they have a bit of a war chest there as well compared to where they were.
Yeah.
So we should see Barcelona coming back as being a kind of a force, somewhat in terms of attracting them players back in there again and getting back to somewhat the levels that they were originally at.
I think the appointment of Xavi was a clever one in that sense, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll garner an awful lot of respect, and you'll get guys going there now, even though they know Barcelona aren't in the condition they've been in the last number of years. But they'll know that coming in there, they're going to work under a Xavi, i.e., as Steven Gerrard will do at Aston Villa. You know, I don't believe you get Philippe Coutinho and Luca Digne, other than the fact that Gerrard's manager. So I think that's something that Barca are going to play on for a little while. We see Adama is basically done. And there's a buyout, or there's an option to buy in the summer for about 30 million, half the loan deal. And they're heavily linked with Alvaro Morata. You know, he's obviously on loan at Juventus at the minute, but his days could be numbered with the arrival of Dusan Vlahovic, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we should see some fresh meat in the door at the Camp Nou.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one I wanted to touch on that came out today, Gini Wijnaldum being linked with Spurs and with Arsenal as well, but came out and made a statement to say that he's happy at PSG, which I find kind of bewildering because he's barely kicked the ball for PSG this season. And he would have been an absolute stalwart in the Liverpool side. He would have played nearly every minute of nearly every game in the season, nearly. So he can't be happy sitting on the bench at PSG.
Now, when I also heard, again, believe it or believe it not, that in the deal, because this deal is partly to do with Tanguy Ndombele and PSG looking to try and get him in the door, and they were trying to work out a deal and how he would go in and how maybe Spurs could get someone out the door at PSG, and Wijnaldum was named, but so was one Ander Herrera. And Herrera actually came out and said, I couldn't play in the Premier League for any team other than Manchester United. But the idea was also put off by Mauricio Pochettino because he's become a stalwart in that midfield slot for PSG. When you kind of thought it was going to be Wijnaldum, and all of a sudden it's been Herrera and Idrissa Gueye rather than a Gini Wijnaldum.
Yeah, interesting comments from Herrera there. I wonder would Poch have the same view if he crosses the channel back to Man United potentially in the summer? Be interesting. I wanted to finish out on Donny van de Beek. I know we have to talk about him. Potential loan move there to Crystal Palace. I'd be very excited about Donny van de Beek playing in the midfield with Conor Gallagher.
Absolutely.
Do you see a situation with this one where you are hanging on to him for the new manager coming in to take a look? Or do you think he'd be sour to the club at this stage and he just wants a move? He's put his career on hold nearly for 2 years at this stage. He's fallen out of the Dutch national team. You know what I mean? This has not been good for this guy.
He absolutely wants this to work at United. And I think that's why the deal has been put in place, basically. From what I hear, it was Dennis Bergkamp, which is Donny's father-in-law, who went to Patrick Vieira and said, listen, he's available till the end of the season if you want to get involved in the conversation. Donny wants to play games between now and the end of the season for a couple of reasons. One, for his head, because he hasn't spent a lot of time on the pitch recently. Two, to try and get a spot back in that Dutch nationals team with the World Cup, only at the end of the year. And three, that if we get a Mauricio Pochettino or an Erik ten Hag in the summer, that they look at a Donny van de Beek who's flourished in the Premier League and says, well, he's just proved he can do it in this league, because at the minute we're being told he can't function in this league because of certain things. So I think there's a lot to prove for the kid, and I'd be delighted to see him go there. I have to say, it would answer a question at United every week, which is, will we see Donny van de Beek? The answer would be no, but we get to see him at Crystal Palace and probably see him do very well for himself if this move happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Barcelona, one final thing. Barcelona looks sound fairly confident that they're going to get one Cesar Azpilicueta off Chelsea on a free at the end of the season. Heading back there, obviously, to finish out his career, which would be very interesting. But provides another headache for one Thomas Tuchel as well in that back line as it is. He has a number of problems there at the moment with players either wanting much bigger, newer contracts or exploring their options in the market.
Absolutely, and there's 3 or 4 at this stage, isn't there? So this summer could be a huge summer at Chelsea. Obviously in positions, I think he knows what he has and he knows he likes. With Chilwell and with Reece James and with Thiago Silva and maybe Chalobah and Rudiger and stuff like that. But I think in the squad, I think the squad needs a little bit of work. I think if you're going to see Azpilicueta, if you're going to see, as our friend Ian calls him, Alonso leave, and if you're going to see Rudiger leave, you're going to have to get 2 or 3 bodies in the door to balance the books there, aren't you?
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah, and then you have the whole conundrum up front as well with Lukaku. That's not going to be gone away by the summer. Everyone can say that it's smooth and over and it's business as usual, but it ain't business as usual.
Timo Werner, he's fired so many blanks this season, as well, and then obviously you've got Ziyech and Pulisic, who have done okay in spades, but haven't really shown the consistency that Chelsea need from them. There's a lot of questions to be asked to Chelsea, I have to say.
Yeah, he is dealing with a lot. I mentioned it on the Monday matchup with Ian as well. He's juggling a lot of balls there at the moment. There's no doubt about it. And we know as well with Chelsea in the past, there's no love lost when an older player wants to move on and he has served his time at Chelsea. They've no problem cutting that fishing line there and releasing them. There's no problem there. So romance wouldn't be a big thing. And in fairness to Aspilicueta, he's been an absolutely outstanding servant for the club without a shadow of a doubt. A player who's played at the top level for a long, long time now. I think he's there. It's a decade now, isn't it? Or more, I think, at this
stage. It is, yeah. And I thought it's been excellent for them. He really has.
Yeah.
But then at times, it looked like time was catching up with him. So I think a step sideways to Barcelona and to a maybe slightly slower pace of game would suit him, because I think he's got a certain amount of football intelligence about him. But I do think you're going to get found out in that Premier League when you're playing guys that are just lightning, absolutely lightning, and guys who do not give you a second to relax on that ball, Yeah,
it could be a fairy tale ending for a guy who's had a stellar career. So I don't think it's a bad thing. And I think from Chelsea's point of view as well, I don't think they'd stand in the way of him. He's been an absolute brilliant servant for them without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, it's been a pleasure. Another transfer week. And no doubt we're going to be updating each other on WhatsApp over the next 4 days. Yeah. Absolutely non-stop. I don't know whether Arsenal have any more players they can actually get rid of at this stage if they want to field 11 next week, the way things are going. If they don't want anyone on their bench, they have to get players in. So we're going to be watching Arsenal. Spurs. Are you going to lose your manager with this carry on? Is 5 or 6 million the difference in a transfer going through going to cost you 30 million in a payoff when your manager says, I'm out of here? Let's see what happens there. But it's certainly going to be an interesting 4 days. We will be suited and booted Monday night for the final day, deadline day, as we always do. Sure to create a bit of controversy. We'll have some of the boys on as well talking about their teams, how they felt the window went, what they felt they needed, what they didn't get, and what are their prospects for the rest of the season. Some of these could be tough conversations, no doubt about it. Until next time, my friend, an absolute pleasure.
Bye for that.